Wow. Wow, that was loud. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Bloomington's weekly celebration of service. My name is Tracy Ivanovich, and I'm honored to serve as your president. Um, I want to say a special, Sally, you're tackling the door down over there. But thank you to you and Marilyn for helping out. And we have Natalie online. Natalie came down with the flu. So, Natalie, we're glad to have you up there. Um, Thought for the day. You never know who you're sitting next to. So take the time to learn. Our previous Rotaract president, Ethan Fragasso, had a wonderful article in the O'Neill School newsletter. And we're going to put a link to that on the roundabout. And I highly encourage all of you to take a look at it. And I wish I would have sat next to him to get to know him better. But he's an amazing, amazing young man. And we have quite a few Rotaracts who come often. I would encourage you guys to split apart. I see you over there. Split apart and sit with us. Make us talk to you. And as Rotarians, ask questions. You never know what you'll learn. Just a little bit about Ethan, just to whet your appetite. He basically moved here. He grew up in Lake Station. His mother overdosed at his age of 12. He had a son at the age of 17, and he always wanted to attend IU and better his life and better his community. And he has done all of that. He is working, I believe, Kyla, over in the Center for Rural Engagement, and his long-term goals are to go back to Lake Station to help others improve. So it's an amazing, amazing story. And he was here the whole time, and I never got to know him. I wish I would have. So I share that because you never know who you're sitting next to. And with that, I'd like Cindy, if you would come up for the reflection.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think it goes without saying that there's a lot of noise out there right now. I mean, it is really, really loud. Some of those voices are passionate, some are angry, some are fearful, and some are just stirring the fear. The noise creates confusion and distortion, and it really leaves some of us feeling defensive, some of us feeling like we need to stand our ground. Maybe some of us are frustrated to the point of arguing in circles. Some are frustrated to the point of muted silence. Noise like this often leaves us unable to see the one thing we have in common. That be our humanity. The way we treat the stranger during times like this says a lot about us. Strangers are those unknown to us. They may be like us or very different. They may look like us. They may think like us. They may speak like us. They may even vote like us, or they may not. But again, their humanness, our humanness, is what we do have in common. And it's why I share with you today the words of Henry Nouwen on the manner in which we engage the stranger. From his work, Reaching Out. In our world full of strangers, estranged from their own past, culture, and country, from their neighbors, friends, and family, from their deepest self, and maybe even their God, we witness a painful search for a hospitable place where life can be lived without fear and where community can be found. Although many, we might say even most, strangers in this world become easily the victim of a fearful hostility. It is possible for men and women and obligatory for believers to offer an open and hospitable space where strangers can cast off their strangeness and simply become our fellow human beings. The movement from hostility to hospitality is hard and full of difficulties. Our society seems to be increasingly full of fearful, defensive, aggressive people, anxiously clinging to their property and inclined to look at their surrounding world with suspicion, always expecting an enemy to suddenly appear, to intrude, and do harm. But still, to create the free and fearless space where brotherhood and sisterhood can be formed and fully experienced, this is creating space for the stranger. I hope each of us encounter a stranger this very day. Thank you so much.
That wasn't even planned, but it sure tied in nicely with the thought for the day on you never know who's sitting next to you. And with that, Elizabeth, if you could come up and introduce our guests. We have quite a few, I believe.
First of all, welcome all of our visitors. When I call your name, if you would please stand so we can recognize you. We have Kevin Gifford, who is a guest of Maria Talbert. Welcome. We have Wade Brown, a guest of Heidi Schultz. Hi, Wade. We have Sheila Reed, a guest of Jim Capshew. Oh. And then we have our three Rotaract members. We have Jackson Morris, Yahya Kader, and Yasif Ali. Glad to have you here. And then do we have any guests online?
Hi, Elizabeth, and hi, everyone. No, we do not, but I'm going to take 30 seconds and brag that we got a tour of Chicago from the view of Raj Hadawi's apartment, and we got to see the Navy Pier. He gave us a video tour. It was really cool. And then I also just want to say a special welcome to all our guests, and especially to our guest speaker, Maria Talbert. She and I went through Leadership Bloomington, I don't know how many years ago, and I also had the pleasure of meeting her lovely husband recently. That is all.
All right. And for birthdays, Glenda Murray on the 24th. John Hobson, for anniversaries, John Hobson, 40 years. That's unbelievable. Carlos Laverty, 2, and John Zodi, 7 years. So for announcements, thank you and congratulations to the community service team. We've qualified to apply for district grants for 25-26. I know Sarah's going to be reaching out to the club to make an ask for submissions for our next project, so be thinking about that. And then there will be a new member orientation. Jim, I marked out new hire. I'd written new hire orientation. Some habits die hard. There will be a new member orientation on May 13th at the home of Jim and Ann Bright. It will be open to the first 15 new members with less than 2 years and who respond to the invite when Jim sends that out. And then lastly, we need more volunteers for the Hoosier Hills Food Bank project that we have for community service. I believe that's this Friday coming up. Is that correct? Yeah. So we need 6 more people for the 10 to noon shift. We need 10 more people for the noon to 2 shift. And Sarah has the sign up sheet here. So if you can do it, please help us out. I know I'll be there. And Dakir, I know you're a pretty wicked packer. You've packed with me before, so I hope you'll be there as well. Oh, you have to work. Okay. All right. And then Happy Dollars. Michael, if you'd like to, where are you? We're ready for Happy Dollars.
I have a happy dollar. It's really $20 thanking the Rotary family for helping Cheryl and me get through a very difficult time. Your cards, your notes, your letters really helped us a lot. So thank you very much.
I have a couple of happy dollars. One really isn't so terribly happy, but I'm going to do it that way anyhow. One is for I missed a few meetings, and so I've missed a few happy dollar opportunities, so I'm taking advantage of them today. And the first one is for my birthday because I had one this month, which was nice. And the second one is actually in honor and memory of my husband. when, you kind of have conversations ahead of time, like what would you like for your funeral? Would you like a funeral? Blah, 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 blah. Well, he always said, no, I don't really want anything. I don't think anybody will come, and I don't think they're important. And so don't waste your time with it. Well, I'm wasting my time with it. And so we're going to do it. And so I'm because of the attitude that he had on this particular event, I'm going to let everybody know that it will take place, the celebration of life will take place March 22nd, which is a Saturday at 3 in the afternoon at the Unitarian Church. And if you're so inclined and have nothing else to do, please join us.
David Meyer would normally be announcing this, but since he's away, I thought I would take the opportunity I got 10 happy dollars for Rahim Mohammadi, who got the first letter in the family granting him his green card.
We have Jim Sims online for happy dollars.
Hello, fellow Rotarians. I have, think I'm on. Can you hear me? Good. I have 20 happy dollars. I'm actually happy because the shortest month of the year happens to be Black History Month. And I am very happy to be a part of this club, which promotes the concept of being inclusive, which I think is very, very helpful, not only for the club, but for our community, and give the opportunity or offer everyone to attend as many events. There's a couple that are left this month. Attend as many as you can or feel comfortable with, and get to know your fellow neighbors a little bit better. Thank you.
I had $20, 20 happy dollars for my being member of this club, which gives me joy. And also that I feel very good for everybody that's here. But the Rotary has become a very important part of my life, and I thank you for that. Makes me happy.
All right. There, one more. There we go. Ruth. Oh,
I'm going to give you $20 and a fervent thank you to the powers that be that my two of my 4 daughters are coming this weekend.
so there's lots of happiness going around. And with that, was there anybody else online, Joy? Are we good?
Yes, I am.
Oh, here's Raj. He's chiming
Okay,
in.
Raj.
Well, I tell you, it is such a delightful thing. In my days of the week is Tuesday, this hour of the day. I visit with my friends. I see through the screen many of you sitting and eating, and I wish I've been with you eating because I don't eat at that moment. In any case, I'm grateful to be part of the Bloomington Rotary Club, and I appreciate your support for me during the year by keeping Zoom active. For that, I'll give $50 to cover that expense.
It wouldn't be the same club without you, Raj. We have to have you. With that, we'll have Hank Welter come up and introduce our program.
Afternoon, everyone. First, I guess I want to I want to see to what extent we're preaching to the choir. So can you please raise your hand if you've been to the IU Auditorium in the last year? All right. That does not surprise me at all that it is well over half of the people in here. I don't always think back to when I first moved here, but something about this group, maybe it's because I still get introduced sometimes as the new Winston Schindel. Even though my 10th anniversary at the Union comes up this summer. But sometimes that gets me to reflect back on observations when I first moved to Bloomington. And I was really struck by the auditorium. I mean, I like going to theater and have been a seasoned subscriber since I came here. But you know, for a town this size to have a operation, not just a facility, but an operation this size, it really has always struck me as something amazing. And some of that I know was Herman Wells's foresight and what he wanted to see at IU and in Bloomington. But it's not just the structure, it's the way it operates and the people who operate it. I think it's a gem of the community, not just IU, but the entire Bloomington community in Monroe County. And I have always been struck by the extent to which that team, led by our speaker, Maria, who I'll introduce in a second, is a collaborator, and the way they care about students. They don't have to, and I've worked on other campuses, and we all probably, a lot of us have lived in other cities where they don't engage as much as they do here with students, and that has always really impressed me. But you didn't come here to hear me talk. So let me tell you more about Maria. So Maria Talbert serves as the executive director at the IU Auditorium, known for its presentation of a wide variety of events. And that's really true if you look at what they present on. University ceremonies, conference events, rock shows, Broadway attractions. This 3,200 seat facility has been a model of campus and community programming and engagement since it was built in 1941. As an integral facet of the university community, IU Auditorium thrives on student involvement and participation. Each year, over 600 IU students work in, volunteer, have internships, and hourly employment roles within the organization. Maria holds a master's in arts administration from IU and has over 25 years of marketing, event, and facility management experience. She's an active member of the International Association of Venue Managers, serving on committees and presenting at conferences and meetings. When she's not at the auditorium, you can find her hiking at McCormick's Creek State Park, practicing yoga, reading, or spending time with her very talented artist spouse, Brian, and their daughter, Emily, who will be a freshman here next fall. So please join me in welcoming my colleague and friend, Maria Talbert.
Thank you so much, Hank. Thank you all for inviting me to, whoa. All right. I think that's better now. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. I'm really happy to be here. And this is nearly 10 years since the last time I got to speak to this group. And a lot has changed at the auditorium since that time. But I would like to open with the same quote I shared with this group, as I think that it is worth repeating, as these words still do resonate today. Theater has the potential to break through binaries. There we go. Start over. Theater has the potential to break through binaries, to bring us into a world of ambiguity and paradox, to unlock positional thinking, to disrupt the normal patterns in our brain. Art has the power to explode the heart and open up other energetic capacities to reperceive. It defies boundaries and leaps tall buildings. It transports, it translates, it transcends. Transcendence is so important right now because our lives are so mechanized, controlled, and commodified. Art has the capacity to open our souls. And every time I get to this point, I start crying, so forgive me, and could be our revolutionary, evolutionary salvation. This quote is credited to the American playwright, performer, feminist, and activist Eve Ensler. She visited campus in 2013. She provided 2 Q&A sessions for students at the Wells Metz Theater and a public talk at the auditorium. This visit by Ms. Ensler exemplified exactly what we strive for at IU Auditorium and have grown exponentially ever since, which are partnerships that bring world-class artists to perform for and interact with our IU students and all members of our community. So let's fast forward from last time I spoke to this group to 5 years later. February 25th, 2020, found me preparing another presentation. This time it was for our staff, outlining the accomplishments of our previous strategic plan and sharing with them the plans to launch a new one. We were planning on holding an all-staff gathering, not only for me to share the strategic planning work, but also to celebrate our collective accomplishments of that year and to thank and celebrate a staff member who had been promoted to another job elsewhere on campus. However, given what was happening in the world at that time, we decided just hours before that get together that a business meeting did not feel quite right. So we ended up making our first of many 2020 pivots. This was March 11th, 2020. And if that date sounds familiar to you, that is because that's the date that the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. That day was indeed very surreal, but looking back, also strangely serendipitous because we were able to have that last opportunity to gather as a staff before then having to spend months without being able to see each other in person. At that time, we were a staff of 18, and now we're a staff of 22. This growth has been mainly due to the programming that we've created in response to what we'd been hearing our community wanted, and the fact that the community has been supporting us in order to be able to provide those programs. As our outreach programs in particular grew in terms of number and complexity, we recognized that we needed more staff to book, create, and design the programs, to execute the programs, to secure funding for the programs, and ensure that our facility and infrastructure could support all of those programs now and into the future. Now, having spent most of my 22 years at the Auditorium overseeing the operations of the organization, I could talk for days about the great work the staff is doing and the changes and updates we are making in many of our administrative, operational, and facility-related systems and processes. In fact, I spoke at our last staff meeting for over 20 minutes, providing them with updates on our ticket sales records we've broken already this year, and various projects, including facility renovation updates, a guest services study that industrial engineering students from Purdue are assisting us with, and yes, finally getting back to work on that strategic plan that we had to shelve 5 years ago. What I'd like to talk about today, though, is how the outreach programming at the Auditorium has grown and evolved over the last 10 years. We've done so through our continued commitment to provide access, engagement, and world-class experiences for all members of our community. Our community has been and continues to be why we do what we do, and we work hard to keep the lines of communication open with everyone we serve and partner with. The programs and services we provide are in direct response to what we've heard from our community over the years. We heard our community asking for more opportunities for children to be able to interact with and experience the performing arts. We heard our audiences when they said they wanted us to help them learn a bit more about the shows and artists that appear on our stage. We heard our academic community asking for more interdisciplinary programs for their students and more opportunities for them to interact with the professional artist crew and staff that come through our building. We heard our board of advisors when they asked whether we could find more ways to provide tickets to members of our community who may not otherwise be able to afford to see a show at the Auditorium. We also heard other members of our board share how their parents miss being able to see shows now that they've transitioned to assisted living. We heard and were inspired by so many stories from those we had touched and the lives we impacted through our outreach programs. And of course, our community extends beyond our campus and beyond Bloomington. It includes our surrounding cities and towns. It includes our entire region. Our ticket buyers come down from Indianapolis, up from Louisville, and over from Cincinnati. And as was evidenced last Friday when we presented the Japanese drum group Kodo, our performing artists come from all over the world. Our agents and promoter partners come from all over as well. and we listen particularly close to them as they are the link between the communities we serve and the vast and seemingly endless community of incredible artists that we can choose from to bring to campus. And so we also listen to our agent partners when they say they have an artist or group that has specially designed programs for K-12 and university students, for retirement home residents, for individuals with disabilities. And I heard a few years ago from an agent who shared his dream of a multi-campus statewide residency for a dance company he was booking. And wouldn't you know, not only was 2015 the last time I was able to speak with this group, but it was also the year I first reached out to this particular booking agent with a dream. He was the booking agent for Dance Theater of Harlem. And I reached out to him on the encouragement of a ballet faculty member who shared that this renowned company, which was formed in 1969, was experiencing a resurgence. I went up to see them perform at Clues Hall just 2 months later and was completely blown away. And so then just a couple days later, I got on the phone with the agent and he suggested his idea for a statewide residency. As a former dancer myself, and as someone who was personally impacted as an undergraduate student by a visit by the Alvin Ailey Dance Company, this idea thrilled me and I made plans to identify partners and funding to make this dream a reality. It came together, and with the support of what was then known as the IU Office of Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs, we were able to put together 11 programs on 3 campuses that reached 460 participants. In addition to having hosted the biggest crowd we had ever had for a public dance performance at the Auditorium, we had sold 1,700 tickets for that show, which is nearly double what we normally sell for dance. We were able to revive an auditorium tradition of a school day performance for K-12 students. While our staff was really excited to have been able to work with the local school system to welcome over 200 students to the noontime lecture demonstration, we learned that day that 200 was definitely not what the company was accustomed to seeing or had expected for programs like that, especially for a hall our size. As you heard from Hank, our hall is 3,200 seats. So while of course the students gave those children in attendance an incredible show and experience, the dancers' surprise and disappointment was really hard for me to look past. That, coupled with all the stress and exhaustion I and the rest of the staff felt at the end of it all, remember we were a staff of 4 fewer than we are right now, all that served as a motivating factor to do better by the company and our community next time we brought them to Indiana. I should also mention that in 2015, I expressed to this Rotary group extreme pride for having grown our outreach programs to 25 in number with approximately 2,000 participants the previous season. By the end of this year, we will have grown 4-fold from that number, having hosted over 100 programs for a projected 8,000 participants in this season. Thank you. These programs range from master classes and career panels for IU students, pre-show talks alongside nearly all of our season events. And by the way, I've challenged our Ed Outreach Department to, for next year, have a pre-show talk before every single performance next year. So be on the lookout for that. She tells me she can do it. Interdisciplinary lectures and activities, access to shows for underserved children in Bloomington and surrounding towns, artist visits to retirement communities, and interactive activities in our lobby, including one of our longest lasting and most beloved programs, Kids Night on Broadway, which was inspired by and continues to be supported by one of our most steadfast community partners, Riley Physicians. Our friends at Riley Physicians also helped us conceptualize our Give the Magic ticketing program, which was launched in 2013 and provides auditorium show tickets free of charge to community members through local service or social service organizations, schools, and campus programs. Since that time, on average, this program has provided unique and meaningful opportunities for 300 to 400 individuals each year. By the end of our current season, the Give the Magic program will have provided an auditorium experience to 1,800 children, students, and family members this year alone. We provide all of these outreach programs free of charge, but of course they come as an expense to the organization, and so we have only been able to grow our programs because of the investment of the community and their philanthropic gifts. Thanks to the leadership, vision, and hard work of our Director of Development, Kevin Gifford, who is here with me today, not only have we been able to raise enough funds to support a new full-time position focused on outreach, but we are well on our way towards establishing an endowment that would fund this position into perpetuity. I'm proud to share today as well that not only have our outreach programs grown fourfold since 2015, but our donations have increased fourfold as well, with most of the growth having happened since the pandemic, which is when since that time, most performing arts centers have actually seen a decline in giving. And today, coincidentally, Hank and I didn't plan this, marks the first day of the second Dance Theater of Harlem multi-campus residency. Our new full-time assistant director for education and engagement, Grace Rimkunis, is currently in Gary, Indiana, hosting half the company there, while the other half of the company is with our director of audience engagement, Ryan Sheets, in Indianapolis. In addition to IU campus stops, the company is expanding their residency footprint this year and will also make a visit to Greensburg, Indiana, to provide a lecture demonstration at their elementary school and a dance workshop at their high school. And this year, as in every other year after that first Dance Theater of Harlem visit, we expect over 1,000 middle schoolers at the noontime lecture demonstration we now call Auditorium Kids on Campus. In all, we anticipate reaching over 2,000 individuals through this year's Dance Theater of Harlem residency, yet another fourfold growth. Our education and engagement programs are inspired by the belief that shared experiences change lives and strengthen communities. Through these programs, we seek to expose the campus and regional community not only to the arts, but also to new ideas, thoughts, and subjects. We seek to foster collaboration, support our local educators, enhance learning both in and outside the classroom, break down barriers for participation in the arts, and inspire the next generation of artists, advocates, and audiences. Speaking of the next generation of artists, a parent shared with us a few years back how meaningful it was for her daughter to have seen the Alvin Ailey Dance Company perform on our stage. She wrote, "My youngest, who is 12 years old, is Black and a dancer, so it was particularly impactful for her. She mimicked the performers for days. I'm having a Jim Laughlin moment. She said it was the first time many of her friends saw strong Black role models on our stage." I will end by inviting all of you to join us at the end of this week for the Dance Theater of Harlem public activities. In just a moment, you'll see a slide where there will be listed 3 events that are open to the public. The first 2 are completely free, and there are still great seats available for the culminating performance on our stage this Saturday. When the slide pops up, please feel free to take a photo of it so you can remember when these sessions are happening. Or, as you may have heard me say, at the end of my pre-show welcomes from stage, visit us at iuauditorium.com for the latest lineup of events. It is truly an honor and a privilege to serve such an amazing institution and community. And I'll add real quickly here, I posted on Facebook a couple days ago, speaking of feeling pride in my institution, that there are not one, not two, but 3 IU alumni as part of the Dance Theater of Harlem company. So that's really special. But yes, it is an honor to serve this institution, to serve this community, and also to be speaking with you today. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and I welcome any questions you might have for me at this time.
Recently, I got to enjoy Clue, and I know many of the wonderful programs at the auditorium, but I have a hard question for you.
Oh no, okay.
Okay,
I'll try.
you're ready for it, aren't you? Recently, Trump has inserted himself into the Kennedy Center for the Arts in Washington, D.C., causing a loss of some programs and a change in some of the other programming.
Mhm.
My question is, have you ever experienced political influence to change your programs? And if you do so, how would you handle it?
Ooh, that is a really hard question. Thank you for asking that question. No, we've not experienced political pressure to change our programming. I don't anticipate that we will. Thankfully, we are very well supported by a number of people on campus who look out for and also share the belief that we do in terms of free speech. And so I am hopeful that we will not be pressured to alter our programs in any way, but I feel great comfort and support in the fact that we have a really strong community here at IU who would help us if and when we were to be asked to adjust our programming. Yes, you're welcome.
Are there any questions online, Joy?
Not yet, Michael.
All right.
When can we find out about the new lineup for next year?
Great question. So we are announcing our season now typically in May or early June. And we used to, you might recall, announce our seasons late April to let folks know before they left campus. But given now that everything pretty much happens online, we don't feel as tied to that. And it gives us a little bit more time to solidify those last minute artists. Typically celebrity artists such as comedians take their time in confirming even if they do. So that gives us a bit more time. So look for an announcement in May or June for the 25-26 season.
My question is, how can one make recommendations for programs?
That's a really great question as well. And thank you for asking that. So we take suggestions throughout the year, and people can just email me at mtalbert@iu.edu directly if you have suggestions. And we then will talk to the agents and find out whether that tour is going to be, or that artist or show will be touring that following year. And we will put that on our show survey. So that's another way that you can provide input to what we are bringing to Bloomington, is to look out for the show survey that we send out every fall via email, and just let us know what you would like to see. And we do absolutely take that feedback to heart as we're putting together our season.
Maria, how difficult or how easy is it for IU Auditorium to book name acts, dealing with agents? I know you got agents like Live Nation and others out there, and I know that they're tuned in to some of the major venues around the country. Do you work with them in If so, how easy or how difficult is it?
Yeah, so some days it's really easy, some days it's not. And it really depends on the show or the artist that we're trying to book. And being a what we call tertiary market, so a smaller market, we don't get the first run of most tours. So, or or we might even need to wait decades until we're able to get. And we've never had Phantom of the Opera at the Auditorium because what happens is these shows that are so well known go to larger markets where they can sit down, is what they call it, for a number of weeks and sell a lot of tickets in those larger markets. But thankfully, we have really strong relationships with agents and promoters all over the country. And by and large, they answer our calls when we inquire about artists. And sometimes it does take a couple few years for us to be able to bring an artist that we want to campus. So for example, I had to work almost 3 years to be able to bring Trevor Noah to campus. And that was an ongoing conversation with an agent who happened to be an IU alum. And we do have a lot of alumni out in the field, which is really great. But then, there are other artists that we will try to get. And maybe because they aren't going out and, as they call it, working, very often, then we might not be able to bring them to Bloomington. But it is an ongoing process. We have and spend a lot of time developing and maintaining those relationships. And then specifically related to Live Nation, we do stay in close touch with our Live Nation rep who is out of Indianapolis, and he brings shows to us that he thinks will work well. So for example, I wonder if anyone, maybe you've heard of Jake Shane. No, you didn't even heard of Jake Shane. Anyone have ever heard of Jake Shane? Okay. Hank, of course. But yeah, so he'll bring to us shows that will work really well in the college market or shows that he just thinks would do well here versus Indianapolis. And yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. It's a mixed bag. It really is.
Maria, the growth that you've experienced with your community engagement work is really impressive. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, what are some of the challenges that you've had with that growth, and what would you like to see in the future that you're not currently able to do?
So challenges are, in addition to what I mentioned related to the capacity of our staff to be able to program and execute and promote these events, being able to lock in events for some and alongside some shows and artists can be challenging. So for our Broadway shows in particular, we aren't able to put into our offer to those shows what we want to see in terms of educational outreach. So for example, for Dance Theater of Harlem, we pretty much had a plan for what that residency was going to look like. That's, half of why these dance companies do what they do is to reach out and connect with members of the community to help grow the dance audience. It's not the same thing for Broadway tours. And so those events get put together at the last minute, sometimes just days before they arrive to campus. So that can be really challenging. Another challenge for us over the years has been to be able to have that communication that I talked about, to stay in touch with stakeholders in our community, to find out what they want and to be able to deliver it to them. So that is part of the reason why we brought on a full-time assistant director of education and engagement, so that not only can she create engagement opportunities for the community, but she can stay engaged herself with the community and be responsive to what the community would like us to bring to them. In terms of plans for the future, we would love to be able to not only have this annual Auditorium Kids on Campus program for middle school students, but we would also like to, in the coming year or two, bring in elementary school students through our doors, as well as high school students. So I'm hoping that next year we're going to be able to program a dance company that will be really appropriate for high schoolers. And then we're also kind of shopping around for something that would be appropriate for elementary school students. There is a tour out that is, I think it's tied to Peppa Pig. That is an orchestral performance. That isn't something we would put on our season, but we would potentially add it on as a special. Still trying to figure out how to make that money work, because we're not going to, my choice would not to have to charge those elementary school students to come, right? So that we're looking at potentially for next year if we're able to raise the funds to be able to support that. And the last thing I'll say is it partly in response to when I spoke with this group 10 years ago, we're also working hard to help make connections between the visual art that we house in our facility and the community. So someone, after the speech I gave 10 years ago, suggested this to me, and I said, well, yeah, we probably should do a little bit more along those lines. And in just a few weeks, keep an eye out on your email. We're going to be sharing out a link to a virtual tour of the auditorium, where you'll be able to click through and see pretty much all areas of the auditorium, including the artwork, with all of the didactics that we have next to each of those pieces popping up as you tour through the space. So we're working on promoting tours as well of the art, and hopefully we'll be able to connect the community to that visual art as well in a lot of other ways as well moving forward. Yeah.
How much do big name artists, how much of the ticket sales do they actually receive? In other words, how much do you have to pay to get a big name artist, say Phantom of the Opera, for example?
Yeah. So that can really range depending. Comedians, for example, command, especially if they're household name comedians, they command anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 guarantee. So the way a lot of the deals are structured is that the artist has an amount that they are guaranteed to receive, regardless of how many tickets we sell. And then after we account for expenses, then there is a split of that remaining box office income. And again, depending on the artist, that can be a 50-50 split, or it can be a 98 2% split, where the artist is walking away with 98% of the box office receipts and we get the 2% left over. For Broadway shows, again, that depends on the show, right? But on average per performance day, it's a $45,000 guarantee. And then the split for that is usually around 70-30. And then for a big name show, we were considering a week-long presentation of a Broadway show that we were not so sure how it would do in this town. And so once we heard that price tag of, it was like $395,000 for the week, we ended up passing on that, and hopefully the price will come down, or we will be able to book a split week as opposed to a full week for that. Hopefully that answers your question. That gives you a good feel for the range. Yep.
So Maria, I'm curious about trends. Like it seems to me that we don't see as much popular music touring campuses as it did when I was a student here, not here, but when I was a student. What do you see as trends over the last 10 years, and where do you think some things are going? Are we going to see more comedy or less comedy, or where do you think the industry's going
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. um, so comedy after the pandemic was really quite relatively easy to book. And comedians, I think, were just itching to get out again and not have to try to, make people laugh through a screen. And we're ready to be on stage again. So that is the reason why you've seen a lot more comedy acts at the auditorium over the last couple of few years. In terms of music performances, now that is hard, and it kind of ties to, I think was Jim that asked the question related to how easy it is to book shows. The big promoters are buying basically a full tour for an artist, and the promoters are working directly with the agents as opposed to us working directly with the agents. They're buying a full tour and oftentimes going to markets and buildings that they know well, as opposed to trying to expand that artist or that show's footprint throughout the country. So that can make things more difficult. So in terms of trends moving forward, I'll share that, and I hope you don't mind me sharing as much, Hank, but a few of us on campus are having conversations about whether we want to and are able to bring someone or adjust a current staff member's position to be able to focus more on bringing larger name, well-known acts to campus. It's something, as I indicated, that really requires a lot of time and relationship building, and also somebody who really knows the industry very well. So we're hopeful that in the coming couple of years, we'll be seeing more big shows on campus, and potentially also be able to bring more shows to our larger venues on campus as well, including Assembly Hall and the stadium. So, that
Maria, if
answers
I
your
may
question.
ask another,
Yeah.
or make a comment, you get these some acts that come in annually, Straight No Chaser,
Mhm.
Dennis James, people circle them up, the dates on their calendar, and they show up. And so they must really like it. Straight No Chaser, I guess it's a no-brainer because they came to be here in Bloomington 20 or more years ago. But what kind of feedback do you get from performers in terms of what they really like about IU Auditorium and its services, and then what kind of other kind of feedback do you get? Maybe where there's a wish list of things that the auditorium doesn't have that they wish it had.
That's a big question. And so I'm going to share a couple of things, and I'm going to look to my colleague to fill in any that you think are important to share. So if you come to a show, you should be receiving a post-show survey, and hopefully you filled that out and shared with us a bit about your experience at the auditorium. And we really take that feedback to heart. By and large, what we hear from our audience is positive, but occasionally we do get critiques and we act on them. So parking and shuttles, I can sense some of you have experienced this, is constantly a challenge. And when we hear that from our audiences, that they've maybe had to wait longer than they anticipated at a parking garage, then we will add more shuttles. And we did this year. But they really love the students that they get to interact with at the auditorium. They love the fact that we have the student volunteer corps, and really, by and large, say that the auditorium is one of the best venues, if not the best, that they've ever visited. In terms of, gosh, what they'd like to see more of moving forward, from students, we do, like Hank indicated, they do express that they like to see more popular music on our stage. And so there's that we're working on, potentially and hopefully growing moving forward. What else, Kevin, would you say has been some consistent feedback.
Hi, everyone. The venue itself is really something that will be a focus for us in the coming years. As you know, 80-plus-year-old venue. You may recall there was a renovation in the late 90s, early 2000s that happened, but this renovation was only front of house. So if you were ever to go backstage, and I would be thrilled to bring anyone here backstage, would love to go. It looks 80 years old backstage. There's a lot to be done. And if we are to be the greatest venue in the United States, we must do everything to have top tier facilities, including in our backstage areas, because we don't want to be limited at all to the tier of artists that we are able to attract. And having, you know, really top level facilities, front of house and back of house, is going to be really, really important to us. If you were to see our, what are called our star dressing rooms right off the backstage, they are not star quality at the moment. So that's really something top of mind for us in next coming years for sure.
Yeah, and where we lack in appearance backstage, we make up for in personality, I'll say. And I say that because despite the fact that our backstage area definitely looks 80 years old, our backstage crew is top notch, and we consistently get positive feedback from artists and managers and crew that come through, and is why we're often asked to tech shows. I don't know if you have known that over the last few years, we've had the opportunity to serve as the launching pad for a number of shows and tours. And so they like to come to the auditorium, not only because it's a great facility and Bloomington is awesome, but because they know the backstage crew will take really good care of them. But yes, we are definitely focused on some capital improvements moving forward, and are really excited to launch that campaign, hopefully in the coming months. More to come on that.
Maria, do you happen to have a behind the scenes, the show that almost wasn't kind of little story that oh, you wouldn't believe what happened behind the scenes to make this show happen, and then it happened or something?
Oh gosh. You know, I'll say that, and some of you who came to that show maybe gave feedback that it was too loud. But if you came to the show Black Violin, that was one where I got to April and I was like, oh shoot, we really need one more show and need to, you know, find something that fits that particular type of genre that we were wanting to program to round out our season. So I did some looking around on other venues' websites and saw this act I'd never heard of, Black Violin. Called up my friend. I said, how were they to work with? How many tickets did they sell? And they said, fantastic, sold lots of tickets. And so called up the agent and he said, yes, they're available during that time you need them. And we were able to book them. So that would be my show that almost didn't happen. And we're really glad that it did, because that brought out a huge crowd. And by and large, except for some people were like, they loved them. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all.
And on behalf of Jeff Richardson, he doesn't have much of a voice right now, which is an interesting concept. Maria, he wanted to let you know that your team is amazing student volunteers who act as ushers and in other capacities. They're always helpful and joyous. And so he really appreciates that. And I thought it was important to share. And Hank, I can feel your pain on the Schindel Spectre since I moved back here, just FYI. All right. So donations going to be made to the warehouse for $100 for the quarter for your fantastic program. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I want to acknowledge all those who helped us. Sally and Marilyn for stepping in as Natalie was ill today. Diana for greeting. Elizabeth stepping in on the introductions. Thank you. Joy for Zoom hosting. And Cindy for a wonderful reflection that tied so nicely with the thought for the day. Convenient. And Alan, as always, for reporting. Mike and camera operations, and Isaac, Zoom and audio production. Thank you so much. Our next meeting will be on the 4th, my mom's birthday, in the Georgian room, and our speaker will be Dustin Dillard discussing the past, present, and future of the Monroe Fire District. So with that, for those of you able to stand, if we could do the four-way test, please. of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Oops, sorry, I forgot fun. There we go.